Hello everyone. Today I, Jash Votadra from Corporate Law Journal, welcome you all to this channel. As you all know, the purpose of this initiative is to explore corporate literacy and to impart corporate legal education in a simple and lucid manner. In today's session, we'll understand the Part B of Committee Report on the measures for strengthening the enforcement mechanism of the board and incidental issues. Before starting with today's session, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for more updates on corporate and commercial laws. In our very first video, we discussed about the Part A of this committee report, which dealt with the regulation of intermediaries. Part B of the committee report deals with the recovery of monies under securities laws. Before we start discussing Part B, it is important for us to understand some functions that the SEBI can perform. The SEBI can impose monetary penalty on violators. It can issue directions for refund. It can order disgorgement and also levy fees on market intermediaries under various regulations. To better understand the concept of recovery, we need to understand that in case of any default, the SEBI Act, the SCRA, Depositories Act all empower the SEBI to recover such amount in the mode and manner derived from the provisions of the Income Tax Act 1961 and the rules made thereunder with suitable modifications. This aforementioned power of recovery is enshrined under Section 28A of the SEBI Act. This provision is a very important one. Let us understand this in detail. Now, under what circumstances the action for recovery gets triggered? It gets triggered where there is a failure to pay a penalty imposed under the Act, where there is non-compliance with the direction of the board for refund of money, or non-compliance of direction of disgorgement or failure to pay fees due to the board. After stating all the circumstances, what happens after that? The next step includes the recovery officer to draw up a certificate specifying the amount due from any defaulter. The officer then proceeds to recover that amount in any of the following modes. Firstly, by attachment and sale of defaulters' movable and immovable property, attachment of defaulters' bank accounts, arrest of defaulter and his detention in prison, or by appointing a receiver for the management of defaulters' movable and immovable property. Now let us understand the most important part of this section: the challenges to the current law and the recommendations given by the committee. The first challenge is that the monies raised through public issue of securities is being siphoned off by promoters to various sister concerns and individuals. The main problem here is that this siphoning comes to the notice of SEBI after the passing of final order, but during the pendency of recovery proceedings. Another problem lies with the explanation 1 of Section 28A of the SEBI Act. Section 28A specifies that the recovery officer has the power to deal with transfers made to certain dependent relatives, namely spouse, son's wife, minor child, and son's minor wife. These persons with whom clubbing of income is allowed under the Income Tax Act. However, the problem lies that this provision does not extend to corporate entities, other individuals, sons or grandsons who have attained the age of majority and who may have been benefited from this default. So if the promoter transfers the assets to another promoter entity to avoid recovery, who are not one amongst the enumerated individuals, it becomes difficult for the recovery officer to deal with such transfers. The committee suggested the insertion of Explanation 2 for dealing with this challenge. Explanation 2 states that for removal of doubt, it is hereby declared that the power to issue directions under this section shall include and always be deemed to have been included the power to direct a new person to whom such proceeds involved in violation of any of the provisions of this Act or the rules or the regulations have been transferred to and who has no legitimate claim to such proceeds. After the insertion of Explanation 2, the committee suggested to substitute Explanation 1 with For the purposes of this section, the person's movable or immovable property or monies held in bank account shall include any property or monies held in bank account which has been transferred without adequate consideration, directly or indirectly, on or after the date when the amount specified in certificate had become due by such person to any other person. The next problem in the current law is the interim attachment through the judicial branch. Let us understand this in detail. Section 28A subsection 4 gives the power to the board to issue an order in interest of investors or security market to take any of the following measures, namely, impound and retain the proceeds of securities in respect of any transaction which is under investigation, attach for a period not exceeding 90 days, bank account or other property of any intermediary or any person associated with the securities market in any manner involved in violation of any of the provisions of this Act or the rules or the regulations. The board shall obtain the confirmation of the said attachment from the special court established under section 26A, and on such confirmations such attachment shall continue during the pendency of the aforesaid proceedings, and on conclusion of the said proceedings the provision of section 28A shall apply. However, this precondition proving at the interim stage itself that the monies and assets involved in violation be traced and identified makes the use of interim attachment quite limited and self-defeating. Also, this can be termed as too little too late, because the time recovery begins, the defaulting entity would have by then ensured that his assets are beyond the reach of any of the enforcement agencies. This prejudicially affects the actual amount of monies that can be recovered. So, the recommendation to challenge B given by the committee is the removal of the words highlighted by me in the red color. Rest of the provision remains the same. The next problem that this committee discussed was the modifications to the framework of recovery under the Income Tax Act of 1961. Section 28A subsection 1 provides leeway for modification. However, no guidance is provided as to how such modification is to be effected. The above stated challenge is that Section 30 of the SEBI Act permits the board to make regulations consistent with the SEBI Act and the rules made thereunder to carry out the purposes of this Act. And the committee was also of the view that delegated legislation made in an ordinary way so as to carry out the purposes of this Act is the mode through which such modifications may be made. After discussing the Part B, I find it important to inform that there are other chapters too in this part. Those chapters contain the comprehensive regulations which needs to be modified, and the same is available from page number 107 to 129. Another is the key modifications to the procedure for recovery under section 28A mentioned on page number 129 to 138. And lastly, the enhancements in recovery process on page 139 to 147.